My ring's been off more than on lately. It's a slippery slope once you take that first step, you know? That thrill, the stolen glances. I thought I could handle it. But now, looking in the mirror, I don't recognize the woman staring back. Trouble is, he's not just a fling anymore, and my whole world's about to blow up. I pull on the silky black dress that skims a little too high, shows a little too much skin. Not my usual style, but who am I these days, anyway? He had liked it when we went shopping last week. Makes you look so mysterious, he had breathed, eyes lingering longer than they should. Guilt squirms again, but it's mixed with anticipation now. A twisted kind of anticipation. I grab a taxi, rehearsing excuses in my head. My best friend's text still sits, unanswered. Maybe I'll call her on the way home, or pretend my phone's battery died. Some half-formed story I haven't fully hashed out yet. All I can focus on is him, his smile, his hands on the steering wheel last week as he dropped me home. The bar is dim, the kind of place with overpriced cocktails and underdressed waitresses. My eyes scan the room, and there he is. He looks up, eyes widening a fraction, a smile playing on his lips. A jolt runs through me, and I have to look away. He's not just a boss anymore, not just a work connection. He's this thing I can't seem to put a name to. You look beautiful, he says, and God, my knees feel weak. It's wrong, all wrong, but the thrill overpowers everything else. Sorry, I'm a bit late, I lie. I'm not late. I was painstakingly applying makeup, changing outfits 3 times, agonizing over whether I was doing the right thing or spiraling headfirst into the biggest mistake of my life. He orders us martinis, and my pulse thuds in my ears. One drink won't hurt, right? Just a drink, a conversation, an electric night with someone who isn't the man snoring in my bed at home. Someone who looks at me with sparks in his eyes and makes me feel like myself again. Whatever that means these days. My hand trembles on the doorknob, the house looming ominous in the darkness. He's probably watching TV, maybe already drifted off. I need a shower, to wash away the scent of him. Not the whiskey, not the lingering warmth of his fingers on my skin, but the betrayal. The lies that hang heavy in the space between us. The water beats down, but nothing can scrub away the guilt. And yet, something's shifted inside me. A defiance. It's ugly, beautiful, and entirely wrong. But there it is, thrumming under my skin. Morning brings a throbbing headache and an unshakable nausea. But it's the weight of my deception that's the hardest to bear. My husband smiles at me over breakfast, and I almost choke on my coffee. It's unbearable. The ease of my lie last night sits like a lump of lead in my stomach. He heads out, and a flicker of panic grips me. What am I doing? How did this become my life? I see my best friend's text from yesterday, still waiting for an answer. I should call her, tell her everything, beg for forgiveness. Instead, I find myself looking at his phone. Stupid, reckless, desperate. There has to be a sign, something, anything to explain this intoxicating rush and this crushing guilt clawing its way through me. His texts are mundane, business stuff, a joke with his buddy. Just the normal hum of everyday life. Except there at the bottom, his most recent exchange. Can't wait to see you tonight. No name, no context, but my breath catches. It's like a punch to the gut. He's seeing someone else too. My fingers tighten around the phone. That stupid text, can't wait to see you tonight, burns in my brain. Rage and a sick sort of relief twist through me. I'm not the only monster here. My marriage, this farce we've been playing it, feels even more hollow now. Work is torture. He's there, so close yet impossibly distant. I catch fleeting glimpses of him. A touch of his hand on a coworker's shoulder. The way he laughs at something across the room. My heart stings. I want to scream, to grab him, to expose this whole rotten mess. But mostly, I want to escape into his arms again. Ridiculous. Pathetic. My phone buzzes, his wife's name popping up on the screen. A picture of them, smiling at a beach with their 2 perfectly dressed kids. I feel nauseous. I stare at the photo, studying her oblivious smile. Does she know? Is she playing just as dirty a game as we are? My husband comes home with plans for a romantic weekend, a quaint B&B tucked in the countryside. It's almost laughable. Almost. I agree. A tight smile plastered on my face. Each lie feels heavier than the last, a twisted weight pressing down on me. The next day, my daughter's teacher, the wise Mrs. Evans, corners me after class. Her usually warm face is pinched, concerned. Is everything all right? You seem a bit distracted lately. I want to crumble, confess everything right then and there. But instead, I force a smile. Just a lot going on, I mumble, and practically run from the room. Lying has become second nature. I don't even recognize myself anymore. He surprises me with a bouquet of lilies. Not my favorite, too fancy, but the gesture throws me off balance. For a second, a sickening wave of guilt almost washes the thrill away. I push it back down. He's trying, late, maybe, but trying. It makes the lies harder to swallow. His brother, Ben, comes over for a casual dinner. I've always liked him, funny, laid back. But now when he jokes about my husband's cluelessness, it lands with a sickening thud. Does he know? Is there a hint of suspicion in his eyes? The paranoia prickles my skin, and I laugh a little too loud, too shrill. The next day, a stupid argument with my husband over something trivial explodes out of proportion. The resentment, a bitter poison building up from the tangle of lies, spills out. He looks surprised, hurt, but I can't take it back. The words hang in the air, heavy and accusatory, a glimpse of the ugliness this has turned me into. Later, his wife texts. An innocent message? Coffee soon? Panic flares in my stomach. A joke that might not be a joke. A test. Or maybe she's as oblivious as my husband. I make up a lame excuse, promising to reschedule, my heart pounding. Then it happens. The supermarket, of all places. I round an aisle, and there he is. Our carts almost collide. His eyes widen, then flash with that reckless fire. We both recover quickly, making small talk about frozen peas and bread prices. But that moment, the charge in the air between us, is like gasoline to my dangerous, foolish heart. The thrill is terrifying, and irresistible. The close call happens when my husband gets up for a glass of water. His laptop, open on the kitchen counter, flashes with a new work email. Panic surges through me. He's just steps away, but I lunge forward and slam the screen shut with clumsy, fumbling fingers. My heart thuds like a drum roll in my ears. He could have seen everything. This is insanity. He's home early the next day with roses, red and velvety, a grand gesture unlike him. The guilt almost chokes me. It feels like the walls are closing in, secrets piling up like unbearable weight. This can't last much longer. Finally, I break a little under the pressure. My best friend notices my distracted glances, the way I flinch at every unexpected noise. Cornered, I tell her half-truths. About the excitement, the flirting, but nothing about the meetings, the nights. It's a relief and a further violation at the same time. A text from an unknown number makes my blood turn to ice. I know what you're doing. My pulse races. Is someone watching us? Someone who knows about him? A flash of blackmail, of exposure, twists a cold knot inside me. All the risks I've so carelessly ignored suddenly loom large and terrifying. I sit motionless for hours, phone clutched in my sweaty hand. Is it a bluff? Should I reply? The not knowing is the worst part. It's like poison seeping into every corner of my life. Later, I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Dark circles, wild eyes, a smear of day-old mascara. This isn't the thrill it once was. This is fear and exhaustion, and the creeping realization that I have no idea how I'll ever get out of this mess. He corners me in a darkened hallway at work. It's thrilling at first, the danger of it. But then his grip tightens, his whispered words become demanding. The thrill curdles into a tight knot of fear. Is this what I wanted? The control isn't exciting anymore, it's terrifying. We steal moments. A whispered call in the bathroom stall, a hurried rendezvous in his car. The frantic energy of it is both a lure and a burden. We're planning now, discussing how to be together and escape from the lies we've built. But even as I say the words, they feel hollow, a twisted fantasy I'm not sure I really want. My husband catches my eye across the dinner table. I see the love there, the unspoken bond of years. How did this happen? How did the boredom, the resentment, lead me to risk destroying everything? He seems oblivious, but the guilt churns in my stomach. The life I've taken for granted suddenly looks unbearably precious. That night, I lie awake, the sheets heavy with sweat and dread. My phone feels like a ticking time bomb. One more text from him, one slip up with my husband, and this whole fragile house of cards will come crashing down. I'm drowning in the mess I've made, and I'm starting to think there's no way out. The weekend of my husband's business trip looms. He's gone, and a wave of conflicted emotions crashes over me. Relief, sickening guilt, and yes, anticipation for the stolen days ahead. It's a toxic mixture I don't know what to do with. I'm in my favorite coffee shop when I see her. His wife. She's sitting by the window, a book open but her eyes lost in the distance. There's a sadness about her I haven't noticed before, a subtle weariness. I want to slide away, pretend I didn't see her. But I don't, and that moment, the recognition in her eyes, makes me feel monstrous. He cancels at the last minute. A work emergency that just popped up. I swallow my frustration, but a twisting knot of doubt worms its way in. This has happened before. What if he's lying to me? What if he has someone else too? The paranoia is suffocating. You seem off, my brother says when he calls. His voice is hesitant, like he knows more than he's saying. His concern feels like sandpaper on my already raw nerves. He's right, I'm not the woman I was. I'm someone who lies and cheats and destroys. He reminds me what I'm in danger of losing. My husband's back, trying to be cheerful, to reconnect. I go through the motions smiling, making small talk, but inside I'm crumbling. He notices, of course. What's wrong? You've been distant lately. His eyes are worried, and all it would take is one confession for this whole charade to explode. I almost say it, but fear clamps down on my throat, and the lie tumbles out instead. My best friend corners me in the hallway at work. Her voice, usually warm and understanding, is cold now with the strain of disappointment. This isn't you, she says, her eyes filled with a hurt that cuts deeper than any accusation. What the hell are you doing? Her words, finally harsh and direct, break through the fog of denial. For the first time, I see the ugliness of my actions reflected back at me. I dream of my husband, asleep beside me. In my dream, his face collapses into sorrow, tears streaming silently. He knows. He knows about everything. I wake with a gasp, a crushing wave of regret and self-loathing washing over me. He takes me to that overpriced bar again, the one with the dim lighting and expensive cocktails. I'm falling for you, he says, and his hand covers mine on the table. It's what I craved, and now it feels like a noose tightening around my neck. The thrill has turned to poison. I want to scream, to confess, to run, but instead, I just nod and force a smile. He's bolder now, impatient. Leave him, he says as we walk along the riverside, his voice low and insistent. Be with me. The weight of it hits me hard, and something in me snaps. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep hurting the ones I love, can't keep lying. I can't be this person. But what's the alternative? Do I confess everything, shatter the world I've built? Do I run away from both of them, become someone I don't even recognize in an effort to escape my own mess? I'm at a crossroads, and all the paths look terrifying. For the first time, there's no thrill to be found, only the bone-deep fear of facing the consequences of so painstakingly created. The words spill out of me in a rush, like a dam breaking after holding back a flood. I tell my husband everything. The lies, the meet-ups, the thrill that poisoned my soul. His face transforms before my eyes. Shock melts into rage, a red flush spreading across his cheeks, and then a terrible emptiness settles over his features. How could you? He spits the words out, each one a venomous sting. His voice is shaking, the calm man I thought I knew replaced by a stranger filled with disgust and pain. I try to speak, but it's useless. I've broken him irrevocably, shattered the trust that was the foundation of our lives. He leaves. The door slams, the sound echoing through the hollow house like a death knell. I collapse on the floor, sobs racking my body. There are no more secrets now, only the ashes of my life and the unbearable weight of my own monstrous actions. The days that follow are a blur of misery. Rumors swirl, fueled by half-truths and malicious whispers. People I once called friends turn away, their eyes filled with contempt. I become a pariah in my own town, the woman who betrayed, who destroyed. In desperation, I reach out to his wife. It's a pathetic attempt at penance, a feeble offering from the depths of my ruin. Surprisingly, she agrees to meet. In a quiet little cafe, we sit across from each other. There are no theatrics, no tearful declarations. Just two women broken, the shared devastation bridging the gulf between us. Her eyes hold more understanding than condemnation, and a sliver of twisted gratitude flickers through me. I'm not the only one suffering this terrible fate. Days bleed into sleepless nights. Tears flow freely, punctuated by moments of cold, gut-wrenching clarity. I look in the mirror and barely recognize the woman staring back. This is who I've become, the liar, the betrayer. Every time I think I've reached rock bottom, a fresh wave of regret hits, dragging me further down. I reach for a lifeline, desperately seeking help. A therapist listens patiently as I spill out my poison, entangling the mess of guilt and pain. Her questions are scalpels, cutting through my shame to expose the raw wounds beneath. It's excruciating, but there's a flicker of hope that maybe, somehow, I can find my way back from this destruction. We try, my husband and I. We sit across from each other, the chasm between us vast and impossible to bridge. His eyes are haunted, the love extinguished. We try to talk, to rebuild, but the words are hollow. The wreckage of our marriage can't be salvaged. The divorce is an ugly process, dissecting a life we built together into cold, legal terms. With each signature, a piece of my heart withers away. I watch as he moves out, taking with him a future we had planned for. I'm alone now, truly alone. The cost of my mistakes has never been so clear. Yet amidst the ruins, there's a stubborn flicker within me. I've survived this self-inflicted horror, and I won't let it crush me entirely. The healing will be slow, messy, and agonizing. But I resolve to face it head-on. Not to erase my past, but to forge a future where my worst decision isn't my defining feature. My strength isn't flashy or heroic, but it exists. It's simply the choice, each morning, to try again, to fight the urge to let bitterness consume me whole. Time passes, leaving scars but also offering the slow balm of a life beyond the catastrophe. It's a life built on shaky ground, where simple routines become victories. Shopping for groceries without the sting of public judgment, taking a walk without the weight of guilt crushing my every step. I find a different job, in a town far enough away to offer the chance of a fresh start. Loneliness is my constant companion. Trust, once freely given, is a precious commodity now. Friendships are tentative, weighed against the risk of my past being unearthed. Some nights, the darkness closes in, and the old despair threatens to swallow me whole. I cling to the lessons learned with a fierce determination, a lifeline against those dangerous tides. I realize now that the thrill wasn't worth any of this, the hollow victories, the intoxicating deception. It was excitement masquerading as love, a twisted path paved with bad choices and a reckless abandonment of responsibility. The fallout was immense. Not just the loss of my marriage, but the shattering of trust in those closest to me. People wonder why I did it, ask what was missing. There's no simple answer, no excuse to absolve myself. Boredom, curiosity, a toxic mix of ego and insecurity, it's a tangled mess. But I see, with brutal clarity, that the fault was entirely mine. No one forced me to lie, to cheat, to prioritize selfish desires over the sanctity of a life built with another. I won't say I'm redeemed, even after all this time. Redemption feels too grand a word. What I am is change. More cautious, more aware of the fragility of happiness. I measure myself by smaller benchmarks, now keeping a promise, resisting the urge to run when things get difficult, being honest with myself and those I come to care about. Will I ever love again, truly and deeply? I don't know. It seems an impossible mountain to climb, fraught with the danger of old wounds and new fears. But I've learned not to underestimate resilience, the human capacity to endure, to rebuild, to find fragments of light in even the darkest corners of our own